All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen. And guys, we are coming to you with a little bit of a different episode today. We are going to recap the Rams game against the Seahawks last week. We are going to preview the Rams matchup versus the Raiders tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football. And we are going to touch on a couple of Rams-related news topics. Jake, starting with the big one, guys. The Rams have acquired Baker Mayfield, and he is, Jake, potentially our new quarterback tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football. Everybody is pretty much familiar with Baker Mayfield, I think, at this point. He is a former number 1 overall pick in 2018 of the Cleveland Browns. He was with Cleveland for a while. Had some ups and downs in Cleveland. Started out obviously a little rocky. Then they went on a really good run. And then towards the end just turned into kind of a chaotic nightmare in Cleveland that ended up with Cleveland trading for Deshaun Watson, which obviously, and rightfully so, angered Baker Mayfield, who was then traded to the Carolina Panthers. Things didn't really work out for him in Carolina. They released him, and now the Rams have claimed him on waivers. Jake, what are your thoughts on the Rams claiming Baker Mayfield?
Yeah, Alexis, I felt pretty good about it. I thought, based on when he was dropped by the Panthers, it sounded like it was kind of a mutual thing where, first off, they like PJ Walker, Sam Darnold had won the job back. And, there was a lot of teammates that didn't want to see him go, most notably DJ Moore and former Ram Austin Corbett. Corbett played with him in Cleveland and just really was upset to see him leave. Basically said that's the business, and how he and his wife are, really close to Baker. So, it's one of those things where I think there's a lot more players in the league that like this guy than people would realize. And when they let him go, I felt like the Rams weren't necessarily out on John Wolford. They weren't out on Bryce Perkins, but you have an opportunity here. Look, Baker is going to cost you $1.3 million. The Texans finally didn't claim somebody. They've been claiming everyone every single week, it seems like. They've had that number 1 spot. And so, the Texans passed, the Bears passed, the Broncos passed, and the Rams were like, look, we have injuries right now. John Wolford dealing with a neck injury. Bryce Perkins, we don't even know how the Rams feel about Bryce Perkins because he didn't start against the Seattle Seahawks. So, you get a chance with Baker Mayfield here, a guy that McVay knows from their time on the plane before the combine. Basically told Baker, famously told him, if Jared wasn't my ride or die right now, we would do everything we could to go and get you, essentially. And so they've had those discussions. They had that conversation on the plane. Obviously, Sean McVay very much has respect for him. And so you have an opportunity to go out and get a former first overall pick that's a little disgruntled, didn't get really a great shot with the Carolina Panthers. Their offensive coordinator was Ben McAdoo, who I think is among one of the worst in the league. And then, you look over with the Browns, and he had 2 seasons where he threw over 90%, completion percentage, and are not completion percentage, but passer rating. And, he broke the rookie passing record, his first year passing touchdowns record. He sent the Browns to playoffs and actually won against the Pittsburgh Steelers and, lost a 22-17 close game to the Chiefs. This is a team that hadn't made the playoffs since 1994. So he's won big games. He has the tools. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been drafted number 1 overall. You look at the mobility, you look at the deep ball that he has, you look at the fact that, in the short and intermediate game, when he's on, he is on, can really make some plays. So I think the Rams just see a high upside guy here. Best case scenario, Alexis, you have your potential franchise quarterback after Stafford, and that could be sooner than later, unfortunately, with Stafford's neck injury and his back injuries and his arm. He's been hurt all over. So if he doesn't play through his, contract, the best case scenario by far is that Baker recaptures that number 1 overall, quarterback that Sean McVay might believe he can be. And then you have your franchise quarterback there for not a lot of money. The mid-case scenario is that he plays a little bit, This is a trial run. You're only paying $1.3 million. And he ends up being your backup in the future to, Matthew Stafford. And then after he retires, maybe, Baker's competing for a starting job, but not necessarily your franchise quarterback, which is totally fine. And then the worst case scenario, which literally this is why I call it a no risk, high reward situation, because there are some Rams fans that would say the worst case scenario is the best case scenario. They're not sold on Baker Mayfield. They don't even like the guy and they don't want him to be a franchise quarterback. They don't even want him on the team. They don't want him to be a backup. So I got news for you. If you're any of those type of people, that's fine. The worst case scenario is that the Rams get a freaking draft pick. They get a compensatory pick for picking this guy up for $1.3 million against their 2022 cap. And that could be a fifth. That could even be a fourth rounder in 2024 because he's a quarterback. It just takes one team that's desperate to pay this guy $10 million for 1 year, a prove it deal, maybe 14. And that may seem like a lot, but quarterbacks demand a lot of money. And if you're looking at a Mitch Trubisky, a Marcus Mariota situation, that's like a fourth round, fifth round compensatory pick that you just bought for 1.3 million. So the Rams win this either way. They're obviously hoping it works out, and they do believe in his talent. It's not just the comp pick. It's not just because they have a need at quarterback right now. They had Case Cookus. They go out and they get Baker. He's 27 years old. That's not really old. He'll be 28 in July, 28 in April. John Wolford's 27. Bryce Perkins will be 26 on the 20th. So it's like the Rams aren't as young at quarterback as people would imagine. And Baker isn't as old as you would think just because you're used to him being in the league.
Yeah, and I think, Jake, with Rams fans, this season has obviously not been great. This has been one of the worst seasons we've had in a really long time. So because of that, I think it makes people a little bit jaded. It makes people kind of see things through maybe not a correct lens. Here's the reality of the situation, guys. We're not making the playoffs. Okay, we're just not. Mathematically, that is near impossible. We would need to win out, and we would need a lot of other people to lose the rest of their games. Okay, the Rams know that. Everybody knows that. This is not a situation where we're trading for a quarterback because we're trying to make a last minute push to make the playoffs. It's just not happening. I think there's a couple of different things going on here. I think the Rams are not entirely sold on Wolford and Perkins as backups. I just don't. I think that they've seen both of them a lot this season, and I don't think that they're super thrilled with either one of them. Okay. So I think they're bringing in someone who they see as an upgrade at backup quarterback. That's one thing. Two, I do think that there is a question mark about Matthew Stafford playing next year. It is obviously getting more and more traction in the media. The Rams have probably been aware about it longer than we have. So I think in their minds, like you mentioned, it's kind of a low risk situation. Let's see what this former number one overall pick, he's still pretty young, has. Let's see what he can do on our team. And the third thing, Jake, is something that you and I have talked about before. This gives the Rams a chance to evaluate their wide receivers. There's a lot of young wide receivers on the team that it's tough to evaluate when you've got Wolford throwing to him, okay? When you don't have, and that sounds like a dig, and I guess it is kind of a dig, but I think we have to give, you've got Kupp out, you've got Stafford out, you've got most of your offensive line out. Everything is just kind of a shit show. It's just going poorly. You need to have somebody in there who is going to, iron sharpens iron, right? You need to have a better guy in there to be able to show people, or to be able to see what people can do. So I think that is also part of the thing. So there's very low risk here. And I think most of the knock on Baker Mayfield, and I'm one of these people, and I go up and down with my opinion of Baker Mayfield. I've been all over the board. So I think that a lot of people are upset because he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And if you're one of those people, that's fine, because guess what? He does. Okay, he just does. He's not for everybody. I understand that. I think he's a good person. It's not about him as, being a good or bad person. I just think his personality is very specific. And I don't think a lot of people like that. And I think it's gotten him into trouble at times. So I think that's one of the reasons why people are skeptical about Baker Mayfield. The second reason is he has not played well in a while. Okay. I also get that. Again, I don't think this is a situation. This is not a situation, I should say, where the Rams are trading for someone who they are set on becoming their franchise quarterback. It is not that. Okay. This, in most likelihood, is a situation where the Rams are like, we want a better quarterback, number two, or we want somebody who's going to give us a better chance to see what our young talent can do. I'm not, again, I know the Matthew Stafford thing, will he retire? Maybe they're looking at Baker Mayfield for that reason. I don't think that's their main priority. I think that would be like an added bonus if they can bring Baker Mayfield in and be like, oh, you know what? Actually, he plays really, really well in our system and does what we want to do. And we think this could be a long-term thing. That would probably just be like a nice little treat. That's not, I don't think, the Rams' motivation. So I think for anybody who is upset about this, and again, I'm not like, I didn't see this news and I wasn't thrilled about it. I wasn't upset about it, but I wasn't like, wow, this is the absolute best move in the world. I think it just is. I think it's just for all the reasons I mentioned. I think that there's very low risk. There's an opportunity for high reward. And that's what it is. Do I think he will be playing the entire game Thursday night, tomorrow night? No, I don't. Do I think we'll see him a little bit? I hope so. Jake, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, because I know people are like up in the air about that. It would be very soon. It would be very soon to see him start a whole game.
I mean, that'd have to be a record at the quarterback position. We're not talking about a running back getting in there. Hey, just take 2 handoffs, right? We're talking about a quarterback. I feel like this is why I'm going to say why I think he could play and why I think he might not play. First off, if he doesn't play, then they have a mini bye. He's already learning the playbook. I mean, they could have him ready and prepped for the next game in week 15 because they're playing Thursday. So they're going to have like a mini bye week. So I think that might be the case. Like the Rams might go in that direction. The reason why I could see him playing is that, look, like how much worse could it be? You know, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Baker Mayfield with a vanilla offense might have been able to take down Kansas City. They were moving the ball. They needed to punch the ball in the end zone. They didn't trust Bryce Perkins. I think if they trusted Bryce Perkins to throw the ball down the field, he might have been able to beat Kansas City, but they didn't trust him, right? And then you look at Seattle, and I think Baker Mayfield beats Seattle. You know, I felt like Wolford played a decent game, but Wolford left a lot of throws on the field. You talk about Atwell beating, what's his face? The kid out of UTSA, Woolen. He beat him 3 times over the top, and Wolford didn't even throw to him or just outright missed him. It's gotten to the point where, you know, now you're not. So here's how it works, Alexis. The Rams are comfortable with Wolford throwing, but he can't throw the deep ball. The Rams don't want Perkins to throw at all, and we don't know if he can throw the deep ball. We've seen it, like he connected with Lance McCutcheon. The problem is, and this is what needs to be said, this is the preseason offense right now. Okay, this is a preseason offense, pretty vanilla. You have some motioning, you have some end arounds, things like that, some cool little gadget plays here and there. But for the most part, it's a pretty vanilla offense that you would see in preseason. Tyler Higbee's done nothing over the last couple weeks. He's dropping passes. Van Jefferson's your top receiver. Atwell led you, last week. These are guys that really didn't play the majority of this season. You got, Austin Trammell catching a pass on the first drive of the game. That's preseason. So this is the challenge, is that you're working with a preseason offense against the first team defense. And so I feel like I trust Baker to do that more than I trust Bryce Perkins and John Wolford to do that. And there's no, like, before people get into the whole, they should tank. First off, Caleb Williams isn't coming out in this draft. Secondly, you don't have a pick in the first round. So tanking only improves your pick in the second, your third, your fourth, your fifth, your sixth, your seventh. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to tank. It makes a lot more sense to finish strong because you can build off it going into the next year. We've seen that in the past. I mean, just look at the Bills, the way they finished strong. They lost the game to the Chiefs, but as soon as that game ended, everyone's like, they're going to the Super Bowl next year. Remember? So it's one of those things where you want to finish the season strong, regardless if you're in the playoffs or not. Another thing is, this is going to be a hot spot, I think, for players that feel like this team is almost there and they were just there in the Super Bowl. and they had a bad year. So if you want to join this team next year, you want to get those guys to join this team. Maybe you get a defensive coordinator if Raheem Morris gets a head coaching job or Thomas Brown leaves and now you have to find an OC and you move on from Cohen. Make this place a place that people want to go to. Like, you got to show the outside looking in, like, hey, this is why you want to come here. We're not imploding. We're still giving our all. I mean, look at Michael Hoyt with his 2 sacks, against Geno Smith last week. I mean, that was his second ever start at outside linebacker. Look at Tutu Atwell getting involved. Look at these players like Bobby Wagner, who's playing in a meaningless game at that point. They had a smidge of a chance to make the playoffs if they won that game. But Bobby Wagner coming away with 2 sacks and an interception. I mean, when you have guys like that are stepping up, like you have Jalen Ramsey out there, regardless of what people want to say about Jalen Ramsey, why is he even out there? He's putting his body on the line in games that don't matter. That's not the sign of a team that is losing it. That's not a sign of a team that is crumbling, that it has hit a wall, that is over. This window has not closed. It's closed for this year in the grand scheme of things, but moving forward, this window remains open. The best way to keep it open is to continue to fight hard and to finish strong down the stretch. And I think Baker gives you that opportunity. And I just think that's really what the Rams are trying to do. They're just trying to save face and win some games and give themselves, some momentum going into next year. So I think that's really, people talk, well, Baker's a free agent. Why would they do this? They have a free trial on Baker Mayfield. You know how you can get like a 30-day Amazon, free trial to Amazon Prime? That's Baker Mayfield right now. You have a free trial. If it works out, you could sign him in the offseason. He already, this is a guy that's been disgruntled. He hasn't found his home. He could find it with the Rams, similar to OBJ without the injury. That's how I look at this. This is an opportunity to see if he makes sense, and he could really help his stock in the next 4 or 5 games. So I don't know. I just think all in all, I like what the Rams are doing. They're still trying to compete. But I think you really have to make sure, exactly like you said, guys like Tutu Atwell, there's no excuse. They need to be out there and they need to have the ball thrown to them to allow them to create plays. You got way too much talent on this roster that's just not really able to produce anything, not really able to develop because you have backups in there. Baker Mayfield gives you a chance to get the ball to Atwell, get the ball to Lance McCutcheon if he plays, Ben Skoranek, who, just like Tyler Higbee, started off well, and now where is he? So I'm hoping to see more of that, and I think he brings that to the table.
Yeah, I think, like I said, the big thing here, I think the main motivation for getting Baker Mayfield is the combination of getting a better backup in place and giving those guys more opportunity. I think, again, the franchise quarterback talk is, one, we don't even know if that's valid because we don't know the situation with Stafford.
Yeah, I mean,
and
it's
two,
premature.
Yeah, it's very premature. And two, it would just be like a bonus. I don't think that's the Rams' motivation. I think because of the season that the Rams are having, it's just kind of like, at this point, it is what it is. But it is very interesting. I never thought I'd see the day where Baker Mayfield was a Ram. If you would have said that a few years ago, I would have thought something. I would have thought a lot of bad things that had to have happened for that situation to come to fruition, and it kind of did. But for Baker, I should say. But
it makes sense though, because they were going to sign Garoppolo if he got cut. So I think this whole time they've just kind of like ridden the wave a little bit. And they're like, we're not going to need John Wolford and Bryce Perkins. Stafford will stay healthy. And now that he's hurt, it's like opened up Pandora's box where Sean McVay's like, oh shit, like we need a backup quarterback. Like this is something we need. Maybe they look at, Jacoby Brissett next year, but the glass shattered. Like Jimmy Garoppolo stuff was real, but now this is really real. Like, you get a chance to claim Baker Mayfield. I feel like this opportunity was just knocking, but let's not act like they wouldn't have been interested if this was even like, Brissett or, even a guy like Matt Ryan at this point. I think they're trying to finish this season strong, and Baker gives them the best chance to win football games.
I agree. And we will talk more about him when we talk about our preview later on in the episode for the Raiders. But Jake, let's backtrack a little bit first. Let's talk about getting to this point, and let's talk about the game versus the Seahawks.
Brutal.
Because the Rams lost to the Seahawks 23-27 on Sunday. And Jake, this was another game that I thought the Rams dominated at first between the two teams.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they were, well, maybe dominate is the wrong word. I thought that they played better than the Seahawks. They definitely outplayed them. They started off strong, but it just kind of the story of the season is things deteriorate really quickly for the Rams for whatever reason. And there was a couple of things that we didn't like. Let's start talking about the offense because I'm going to get into it because everyone's asking me about it. Kyren Williams.
Where the hell was he?
Where was he? And before, guys, this is a real stat. Kyren Williams had 3 carries. 3. Cam Akers had 17. Okay, so Cam Akers drastically outcarried Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams was only on the field. I don't have this number in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that he was only on the field a couple other times, and it was for pass pro. So Kyren Williams was not super involved. And guys, listen, if you watched him this season, he has got positive gains 99% of the time when he has the ball. Me and Jake have talked about it. You put Kyren Williams in, you feed him, he runs the ball. He had one bad run, I will admit, last game where he didn't see defender, and that wasn't good. But other than that, positive momentum. We loved what we've seen from him. Yet the Rams are doing with Cam Akers what they've done the entire season. They are forcing the run with Cam Akers. Jake, what is it? Is it that Sean McVay is obsessed with Cam? Is it because there's something in Cam that the rest of us just can't see? I'm not trying to hate on the guy. I like him, but I don't understand the huge disparity of carries. And he was averaging, Jake, against the Seahawks, 3.5 yards per carry. Kyren Williams and all 3 carries that he got, 3 yards per carry, so slightly less, but he only ran the ball 3 times. Cam ran it 17 times, was averaging 3.5. What's going on? I know everybody also started Kyren in fantasy last week, so that's also part of the reason a lot of people are probably angered at why he wasn't used. But is there something we're missing?
Why I'm angered.
I know that you bet. Yeah. Jake bet on Kyren getting what, 20 yards?
I needed 36 yards out of him. It was over under 35 and a half. And I was like, oh, Kyren against the second worst defense in the league against the run. This is a no brainer. And then he gets 3 freaking carries. I was furious. Lost a lot of money on that. No, look, Kyren Williams, I could kind of see where McVay was going. I think he was wrong in doing so because you don't need to just run it 17 times with Cam. You could have run it 10 other times with Kyren Williams. Now you run it 27 times with the run. And they were running the ball, actually having some success. Cam Akers showed some good things. I'll say this. At the goal line, we dog on him, but we're not rooting against him. I think people kind of forget that. He had 2 goal line carries where I've always said this guy is missing something. He doesn't have the nose for the end zone like Todd Gurley, right? He doesn't have the nose for the end zone like Darrell Henderson did. Let's be honest here. These 2 touchdowns, that's half as much as he's had his entire career. But for real though, at the goal line, I thought he made some really nice decisions. You talk about the hesitation move he made and then to cut inside. He had to find, the end zone on those 2. So I thought, you saw good things there. There were some good runs, no doubt about it, but it ended up being a 3.5 yards per carry day against, and this is the cold hard truth, it was the second worst run defense in the NFL that gave up over 300 total yards. Jacobs the year, the game prior. The Rams are going to be playing Jacobs, and we'll get to that. But I just felt like Sean McVay overrated the body that Josh Jacobs is. So he saw the tape and was like, "Oh, Josh Jacobs is a bruiser." And I'm sure his thought process was not like anyone can run against this defense. but it was more so, no. Cam Akers is like Josh Jacobs. Like, we're going to get Cam Akers going. And I could see the thought process, except for the fact I felt like if you were going to run Cam Akers 17 times, I don't have an issue with that if you want to slow them down, if you want to really start to grind out, because Cam Akers is not easy to tackle. When he has a head of steam, he's not easy to bring down. He breaks tackles. He has physicality. But do you see where I'm going with this, Alexis? You had the physicality. You hit them with the body blows. Now you go for the haymaker with Kyren Williams. Now you run it up the gut. Now you give him an opportunity, because this defense is getting punched in the mouth, or rather punched in the chest considerably and punched in the gut by Cam Akers. Then you go for the knockout blow. And I felt like that's something that was missing. Akers wasn't housing those plays. So he had the 2 touchdowns, but he was good in the short like the short game, right? Like the 2-yard runs, the 3-yard runs, the power runs. Every one of those, it's why like Derrick Henry can have 30 carries for 158 yards, but for the majority of the game, he's at 25 carries for like 78. It's the combination of Henry over time tiring out the defense. He becomes harder to tackle, and then it becomes harder to tackle other players because you're winded. So that's how I saw it. Is I think you go in there, you use Cam Akers' physicality to your advantage, and then you put in Kyren Williams, who's the quicker, shiftier back. And then I just felt like that's how I would have approached that. But they instead didn't really go that route. And I felt like that was kind of a mistake. But I will say this, I'm glad that they somewhat dove back into the run game. Like for the first time in a while, even though it was Cam Akers, not like a split carry backfield, even though Darrell Henderson's gone, I just appreciate that Sean McVay actually started to commit to run the football. I don't know why they didn't do it, with Perkins, and they did it for Wolford, who they trust to throw, and they don't trust Perkins to throw. But I'm glad they did, because I feel like they had more of a chance to win that game. And I think really it came down to, they mixed up their runs well. They got Atwell involved. They got Powell involved. I think that's kind of the same type of approach that you're going to see against Seattle. But that was important. That started to make me feel like it sounds weird. I mean, they've lost 6 straight, but I feel like their win is coming up very soon. I do think they're going to win a game. I don't know how many more games they win, but I think a win is coming. I think they definitely deserve to win that Seattle game. And the defense just broke down at the end. And oh man, do I have thoughts about that last play of the game, even the second to last play of the game, Alexis? Because I just felt like Jalen was all left alone, and at that point, it's like the way I would interpret it. It's like a penalty kick in soccer, like to a penalty shootout, like a kick in soccer to end the game. You guess one side, he kicks it another. Jalen goes to swat the ball here, and the ball's like here. I mean, if he, goes over the other shoulder, he knocks it away, right? It's a guessing thing. But Jalen had decent coverage on DK Metcalf. What Brian Baldinger of NFL Network brought up, and this was spot on, is that you have the running back clearing out, right? So he's leaking out of the backfield, ready for a screenplay. If that's the case, you have Bobby Wagner there. Instead, you have Bobby Wagner and then Taylor Rapp, who's supposed to be covering the zone and be like basically being in the way of DK Metcalf, was not in position. He was covering grass and was basically just like in the same spot as Bobby Wagner. People can say Raheem Morris this, Raheem Morris that. No, Raheem Morris did not call a play where he had Taylor Rapp and Bobby Wagner next to each other to stop the screen pass. So sorry, stop you there. And then the second thing that Baldinger brings up is the back end of the end zone. You see Nick Scott. Why? I don't know. There's nobody in the end zone except for DK Metcalf, who's about to catch the game-winning touchdown. Ramsey's all over him. He just needs some help. So Rapp didn't help him by staying in his little zone or whatever you want to call it. They were in the same hook zone. And then, Nick Scott's playing the deep end of the end zone. There's nobody there. Nick Scott comes over late, and as Baldinger brings it up, he needs to hit Metcalf immediately. He needs to be right there. It needs to be a bang, bang play. This is the game. and they played very passively. Seemed like only Ramsey was trying to win the game at the end. And of course, as we all know, he gave up the touchdown. So that's all that anybody talks about. But I'm glad Baldinger brought that up because, it just kind of goes to show you. I know people have been critical of Ramsey, but I would make the argument that Ramsey is playing around a secondary. It's not that great. It's not full of talent. And I think that they'll reevaluate in the offseason. I think if you get a guy like Jamel Dean of Tampa Bay, on the other side of him, maybe you have to pay him a lot of money, but he's the best tackling corner in the league, and you play bend don't break. So you need guys to be able to tackle. You talk about the best tackling corner in the league. He's one of the best corners in the league. He's definitely one of the best in free agency. That way Ramsey could start to play off a guy a little bit. Like it's always been, he's the number one guy. And now more than ever, Alexis, without having Von Miller, without having that pass rush they had last year, he's going to get exposed. And it's not necessarily him. It's really the secondary. I mean, these guys aren't great. We like Nick Scott. They called him the assassin. Nick Scott is good at times, but he's inconsistent. Taylor Rapp, we'll avoid that conversation because there are a lot of people that don't want him on the team anymore. The point being, though, is that he needs help. And when he always needed help, but what was covering that up is their pass rush. Last year, their pass rush took over. So you don't need to cover guys as long as you do. Ramsey this year, he's having to cover guys a lot longer because the pass rush is not getting there. It started to with Hoyt, but I mean, you could tell on that last play of the game, if Donald's in there, Geno doesn't have time to throw that ball. Donald's coming right up the gap and he has no time to throw that ball and probably the game's over. So it's just one of those things where I wanted to bring it up because I think it's very easy to just point the finger like Ramsey's trash, Ramsey's washed, Ramsey needs to be a safety. But what I'm seeing on tape is that Ramsey needs some damn help. Darian Kendrick leaves these guys open and he just tackles them after the fact. I've been, because I've been tweeting about it, I've been texting you about it. Like, where's Jacoby Durant been? Jacoby Durant comes in. I think he only played 2 snaps in that game, it seemed like. He comes in, makes one of the biggest plays of the game with that pass breakup. I mean, why was he not playing? Why is Rochelle not playing? Troy Hill's banged up. David Long. I mean, they're not going to bring back David Long. So I think this year, to wrap up basically what I'm saying is we're talking about getting to evaluate these guys. This year, you got to find the guys that are going to be on your team next year. This is what they need to be doing. And you need, regardless of how it works out, you need to know that you're going to be able to help Jalen out. You gave him a lot of money, yeah. But Jalen can't be a playmaker if Jalen has to do everything without a pass rush and hardly anybody in the back end of the secondary. So I think that's something. I'll also give your guy a mention. I'm a big fan of his with the Giants, Julian Love. He'll be a free agent. I think he'd be great in the back end of the secondary. I don't have to tell you that. Made the switch to safety. He's one of the best tackling safeties in football. So there's my wish list, Alexis. If the Rams want to make me happy, they can go out and get Jamel Dean and Julian Love and give Ramsey some weapons, man, in the secondary and let him be able to play freely and see what happens from there. But that was my long takeaway of the final play of the game. That pissed me off so much because it literally resembled exactly what I've been saying. Ramsey needs more help. It's just a bunch of guys and Ramsey. Love Jacoby Durant, but right now I feel like it's just a bunch of guys, younger guys, and then Ramsey.
Well, and just to close out, this before we move on to previewing the Raiders matchup tomorrow night, something that's just become increasingly obvious, I think, this season is our secondary being exposed, especially when you get all of these injuries and things like that. Our secondary is just, Troy Hill, I know he's hurt now, didn't look great. Our other corners don't look great. You got Darian Kendrick in there. He doesn't look great. I want to know why we're not seeing, Durant. Our safeties, Taylor Rapp, we know how that's gone. Nick Scott hasn't really looked great, had a few good moments. He's also looked a little weak. Really, Jake, there's not a position in this secondary that I don't think we can upgrade massively. I mean, other than Jalen Ramsey. And listen, I get that Jalen Ramsey has not really had a good season. No. I think part of that is on him I think part of it is on him. He has made some uncharacteristic mistakes, but you also have to kind of have like the perspective of maybe he's making those mistakes because everything else is going wrong and it's like a lot to handle. So it's not an excuse, but it kind of is. So I think we've got to get him help. I think this defense, guys, bend don't break has actually saved us. I mean, if you look at this, like if we're not playing bend don't break, I think our defense
don't even want to know.
I don't know what would happen.
Well, do you remember
how
Justin
much
King
worse
on the Rams?
A long time. He was a long time ago, right?
Do you remember how
Who'd you say?
Justin King he gave up 3 touchdowns to Torrey Smith?
Yeah, that was yes. I mean, guys,
that's what that would be.
It's just like bless the bend don't break. I mean, the only reason that bend don't break doesn't work is because I'm breaking down every game. Okay, watching it, I'm having a meltdown. Watching the Rams every week. But other than that, it is doing wonders. But it does beg the question, because we're in the phase of the season now where it's like we're not making the playoffs. So we are having these conversations. We're looking to next season. We're still in season and we're going to use this season to obviously evaluate people. But then it's like, okay, we already know that the secondary's got to improve. But maybe see some young guys, maybe switch it up.
Why
Daniel
is Taylor
Hardy
Rapp playing? He's a free agent at the end of the year. I want to see
Russ
East.
That's my
I want to
thing.
see our guy Quentin Lake,
Exactly. I want to see these young guys because it's like, okay, now that the playoffs are out of the picture, let's put in guys. What's the worst that can happen at this point? Put in these young guys. If they totally fail and they don't do a good job, then but they might surprise you. I really want to see Daniel Hardy. He's finally healthy. I'm really excited to see him too. So, there's a lot of these young guys that I think should be getting a shot because like I said, our defense, like it has kept us in all these games, but now that we don't need to, win out, like I think we can allow for more error and just put in some young guys. So we'll see. But Jake, maybe we'll see that against Vegas. Let's talk about that. The Rams are playing the Raiders tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football.
I'm weirdly excited for this game, Alexis. I'm weirdly excited.
I'm excited for this game too, and let's talk about why we're excited. Guys, the Raiders are 5-7. I have not watched every game that they've played this year, admittedly. I'm not a Raiders fan per se, but they have not really looked good. And a lot of people, think of the Raiders, they got Derek Carr, they got Devontae Adams in that big trade with the Packers, obviously one of the best wide receivers in the league, if not the best talent-wise. They've got Josh Jacobs, who has been on a tear this season, which I think is great for him because they didn't pay him last year. So
he's loving this.
He's loving it.
I get to leave the Raiders and I'm going to be the highest paid running back. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, Josh Jacobs lighting it up. But their defense, not that great. And Jake, I think a lot of people forget that the Raiders made really big splashes in free agency this year. Chandler Jones comes to mind. Obviously they traded for Devontae Adams. There's a couple other guys. And this was a team that a lot of people, if I recall correctly, said might be like the sleeper in the AFC West, which is a very competitive division. It seemed like in the offseason, every big free agent went to the AFC West. They went to the Broncos. They went to the Raiders, the Chiefs, Chargers, whatever.
They might have one team in the playoffs. Isn't that funny?
Exactly. Yeah, right. And so it's kind of like the Raiders have had, I wouldn't say they've had a Rams-like season. I'd say it's better than the Rams season.
I mean, they're 5-7.
But, I just think that, Jake, if there's a team that we were going to get our first win against, we've said it before, so I'm kind of cringing saying it because I feel like we've said this a lot this season where it's like, this is the game. But this isn't the Chiefs. This is the Raiders. I think that we have a good shot. Jake, what do you think is the number one thing the Rams need to do going against the Raiders tomorrow night to win this game?
I think they got to run the football. I think you got to do what I was saying. Run it with Cam, tire out the defense, and then let Kyron Williams eat. Take advantage of this tired out defense, be physical. Use Cam for the body blow and let Kyron Williams be the deciding haymaker. I think you do that, and no matter who your quarterback is, if you can get the run going, it's going to open up opportunities for your quarterback, whether that's Baker or Perkins or Wolford. I do not see Wolford playing this game, nor should he really. I think the rest of the year it's got to be Mayfield or Perkins, but I think this is a huge opportunity though, because the Rams can establish their run. They can keep, building these good habits. I mean, we saw it kind of this time last year where Sean McVay went back to the drawing boards. Like, you know what? We're going to run the football with Sony Michel. Well, this year they don't have Sony Michel. I don't know why they didn't bring him back. I don't really care at this point. Cam Akers is the guy, as well as Kyron Williams. I think you got to use Kyron more because they're not going to the playoffs. So like these are really valuable reps. So I think first and foremost, they got to run the ball. They got to stop Josh Jacobs. They got to be able to contain Josh Jacobs. I'm not worried about Devontae Adams as much as I am Josh Jacobs, because Jacobs you could put in the same category as a guy like Christian McCaffrey. When the Rams went up against him twice, McCaffrey just doused them in flames. I just feel like when you look at Jacobs, guys that have that multifaceted ability, that aren't just like runners of the football, but can also catch out of the backfield and really do a nice job with the ball in their hand, they're the problems for this defense. This defense has done a nice job against the running backs. I mean, they really have. But the biggest issue has been running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield. Even, Alvin Kamara did some things. So I think that's a big thing moving forward. You got to be able to run the ball and you got to stop the run. And then I think at that point, Derek Carr doesn't have, Josh Jacobs to rely on, and you're trying to just get to Devontae Adams and say Jalen Ramsey, and you're bracketing Devontae Adams, and it's just too much for him. At that point, you're left with Keelan Cole and Mac Hollins, and then DJ Turner. So I'm not exactly worried about the receiver room. They don't have Darren Waller. I think that's how you beat the Raiders. I mean, you force the game out of their star's hand. You run the ball. You keep it easy for your quarterback, and I think you win this game, and then you get ready for next week, whether that's Mayfield or Perkins, and you can be a little bit different. But I think the game plan should be about making this a run-happy type of game. I don't think it will be. I think they'll probably avoid running the ball, but that's what I would do.
Well, I agree with everything you said. That would be my key to winning and stopping the Raiders as well. But I also agree with the fact that I don't think that's what the Rams will do, just based on precedent. But Josh Jacobs, I think, is the biggest threat. I know some people might think that's crazy to say with Devontae Adams on the team, but when you've watched the season so far for the Raiders, it's been Josh Jacobs. I mean, it's been the Josh Jacobs show. He's really taken over. Carr's struggled, which I think has made Adams struggle a little bit. They haven't looked as in sync as maybe we thought they were going to be. Now, don't get me wrong, Devontae Adams is still a threat. I think this is a situation that I would like to see Jalen Ramsey shadow. I don't think that will happen either, because it's not normally what we see. But I think Devontae Adams certainly is a caliber of receiver that deserves to be shadowed by Jalen Ramsey, one of the best corners in the game. So that would be fun to watch if that's what happens. We'll see. But yeah, I think we just got, our defense has to step up. And I know that sounds crazy to say, because it's like, that's what they've been doing for us all season, right? They've been keeping us in games, but they're going to have to do it again. They're going to have to stop Josh Jacobs. In terms of our offense, guys, it's a little up in the air, because it's like right now we don't know who is going to be our quarterback. Is it going to be Baker Mayfield? Is it going to be Bryce Perkins? My assumption is it's going to be like a 75-25% split. I know that sounds crazy, but I think that it's just really soon to get Baker Mayfield in there. And you don't want to throw him into the fire, right? Like, that's not why you brought him to the team. Again, we're not making the playoffs. It's not like we're in a rush. So I think we're mostly going to see Bryce Perkins, because I also wouldn't put Wolford out there if he's not 100%. That doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help him. It doesn't help the team. So I think we're going to see Bryce Perkins. I think we're going to see a lot of quarterback runs. I want us to run the ball. Like I said, I'd love to see more of an even split between Cam and Kyron. I know everyone thinks I'm biased when I bring up Kyron, but I really want to see what he can do. I mean, like Jake said, we're not making the playoffs. It's time to give these young guys a chance. Kyron has not let us down so far. I mean, when he's been getting those valuable reps, when he's been getting a lot of carries, I know he didn't last game, but the games before, he made all positive gains. I mean, he looked great. So I love to see him build off that. I'd love to see more of Lance McCutcheon. I want to see what he can do. Tutu Atwell, I've been impressed by, especially I won't be shocked if we see Baker Mayfield come in and throw some bombs to Atwell.
Please.
So I think we'll see it. I do. I think that if they put Baker in, that's what it's going to be for.
Isn't that going to be obvious though? Oh shit, he's coming in.
Yeah,
all right.
but
like everybody backpedal. Like
I know, but it was obvious when they put Perkins in. Remember which game was it? Every time they put Perkins in was to run. So we'll see. But I think that this is a situation where you have two kind of somewhat similar teams that aren't performing to the level that they thought that they would. And I think the Raiders they're not very stable. They're kind of shaky. And I think that, it won't be hopefully too difficult. I think that their offense is what I'm worried about. I'm not really worried about the Raiders defense, but you got guys on like Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams, on offense that kind of worry me a little bit. So Jake, let's get into predictions. Let's get into game stats. It's weird because like I've got to think everyone is hurt. Who can I give a prediction to? You know what? I think we're going to see another big game from Michael Hoyt.
I do too.
Is that I think they've moved him into a new position and he seems to be thriving there based on last game. So I'm going to say 2-sack game for him.
Again?
Yeah, I think he's going to do it again. Is that bold? That's probably bold. But I think we're going to see a big game from him. I think we're going to see, okay, so that won't be a stat. I was going to say, I think we're going to see actually a lot of Daniel Hardy this game as well. Let's go to the offense. I think we're going to see a Cam Akers and Kyron Williams touchdown because I think that we're going to be able to run against this defense, which sounds a little crazy because they do have Max Crosby, by the way, who has been on our show and is a friend of the show and is still friendly to both of us. But we do have to cheer against him tomorrow. So I think we're going to see touchdowns from Cam and Kyron. And I'm going to say Baker Mayfield to Tutu Atwell touchdown. I know that's oddly specific and that's what everybody wants, but I think they are going to put Baker in for a few plays. And when he's in, they're going to use him obviously for things that they couldn't use Wolford or Bryce for.
That's so sad. They have to put him in to throw a deep ball.
I know, but I think why not? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I don't have any
that's kind of the
it.
beauty. Like, if you want to find a silver lining to being in the spot that the Rams are in right now, it's like you can really do anything. You don't have to worry about anything anymore. Your season's over. Like, why not?
Crazy?
Just go for it.
I'd literally start Baker Mayfield and wouldn't look back because he's used to playing in like preseason and stuff like that. Like, you just give him a vanilla playbook and you're like, all right, let's run like the most vanilla offense ever. I would literally just give him the ball and I'd be like, you win us this game. And I would not look back.
I wouldn't be against it. The only reason I just don't think that's going to happen is just literally like learning a playbook in this short amount of time. And just for the continuity of the game, like I just think logistically that could be super difficult at this level. I'm not saying it's impossible.
But I mean, so you have a practice or two, you get on the same page with one of the receivers and you just kind of lean on one of those receivers and then you run the ball, I mean, we've seen it before.
Hey, it could happen. It could happen. Regardless, I think I stand by my prediction. Either he plays the whole game or comes in a little. I think Baker Mayfield, the Tutu Atwell touchdown is going to happen and it's going to break a lot of people's brains. But
I'm all for it.
It's going to happen. What are your predictions?
One thing that could break a lot of people's brains that I'm a little worried about is when you look at this Raiders team, they have a lot of guys that can just rip the ball out, that can hit you hard as hell and knock the ball out. Denzel Perryman is like getting hit by a Mack truck. Jayon Brown, Nate Hobbs, Trayvon Merrick, Daron Harmon, Amik Robertson is known for his hard-hitting ability. Then you have Max Crosby coming off the edge that can, he's a strip sack waiting to happen. And then you have Chandler Jones, who, I mean, they have a lot of guys that can force turnovers. That I think is the big redeeming quality about this defense is that they can take the ball away. They absolutely can. If I'm looking at, stat predictions or anything like that, I'm going to say Cam Akers runs for 2 touchdowns yet again. I feel like they're going to keep going back to him and try to give him, an opportunity to kind of claim this starting job. I don't know, if that's necessarily fair to Kyron, but I feel like that's kind of the direction they're going in. And at the very least, they're going in this direction to kind of give him some value and then maybe trade him in the offseason, which would make sense because that kind of adds into next year. So that's the first thing I'll say. But the second thing is I think Atwell is going to be the most targeted receiver in this game yet again. I think that the Rams are really like they're almost like it's a bittersweet moment when you realize that you were wrong, like about Atwell. I mean, you were sitting there like, yeah, we can't get him on the field. Like we got Brandon Powell. We're going to use Brandon Powell. And then Atwell comes in and it's like every single time he's in. And remember, I alluded to this on a podcast, Alexis. And by the way, when I say you were wrong, not you, I mean the Rams. I'm not calling you out. But I said on one of our podcasts, I was like, look, this is a guy that they were talking about all training camp. Okay, this is a guy that was getting behind the secondary in practices, the joint practice against the Bengals. He reportedly blew up in, and they kept him out of preseason because they looked at him as a key contributor during the season. Van Jefferson was out. That was your opportunity. They didn't get him involved until really the Dallas game, right? Dallas game, he beats one of the best corners in football, Diggs over the top. They don't use him again until like 3 weeks later. They use him against the Saints. He catches like a 70-yard touchdown. And then they don't use him again after that, and they lose. And now we finally start to see him, Kansas City game, the Seattle game. He's starting to come into his own. He's showing you that he's not just a deep threat, can help you with those crossers over the middle. He can help you with those out routes, things like that, skinny posts, whatever. He's got a route tree. The guy can run routes. He's not Tavon Austin. And I think the Rams finally kind of started to see that they have held this kid back. And I think we're going to start to see more and more and more of Tutu Atwell because, I mean, it's judgment day for Tutu Atwell right now. He has an opportunity each and every week to make more of a case to be a starting wide receiver opposite Cooper Kupp next year. And that's just the reality of it. I mean, Allen Robinson, I don't think will be back. I really don't. I think they're going to pull the plug. They'll either trade him for Brandon Cooks or they'll trade him for a pick and they'll sign Robert Woods back when he gets cut, and I expect him to get cut as a cap casualty by the Titans. So they'll go back to some familiar thing there. And then Van Jefferson, where is he? Do they like Van Jefferson? Like, I don't know what to make of Van Jefferson. I like Van Jefferson, but I don't know how much they like him. So I think Atwell, Alexis, has a legit shot to be maybe not Tyreek Hill like people would like, but I think a realistic comparison is Marquise Brown. They both are just about the same size. They both are just about the same speed. I think he's very similar to Marquise Brown when you look at him without the drop issues that Brown has. And that's saying something.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I definitely think he's going to get a lot of opportunities this game. I think he's been kind of, having that steady rise. And I think we're going to see a lot more from him tomorrow night. But Jake, let's talk about the score prediction.
Yeah.
And people get mad at us. Okay, so we didn't do a preview episode for the Chiefs, but people get mad because they say that we always predict a Rams win, which
I predicted 2 Rams losses in a row.
I predicted that the Rams would lose to the Chiefs, and I predicted that they would go half and half with the Seahawks. So hopefully we do that and we win the next game that we have at the end of the season against the Seahawks. And I have another game I won't spoil that I think we're going to lose later on. One can probably guess which game that is. But
the Chiefs, I had 31-17, I think it was, or 34-21. 34-21 was what I had for the Rams Chiefs. And then I had 24-16 Seattle over the Rams. So I've picked them to lose twice. So there's no bias here. I'm being honest. Like,
well, here's the deal. I am predicting the Rams win this one, but I almost am not. I want everyone to know that this is a very tentative win for me because up until a few hours ago, I had this as a loss. However, I just feel like there is a type of energy right now with the Rams where it's like teams that really have nothing to lose will pleasantly surprise you. Like teams like the Rams who just truly are getting Baker Mayfield, right? Like just pulling moves like that literally backs against the wall. Like usually, at least for a while, they're going to surprise you and have some positive momentum. Now, I don't think this is going to be pretty, Jake. Like, I'm thinking the Rams win like 17-14. Like,
Ooh.
truly, I don't think it's going
Ooh.
to be a fun game. I really feel like this is going to be excruciating. I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter.
You
And I
said you
think
were
both.
excited though.
No, I am excited. It's Thursday Night Football. We have football early,
17-14,
our
baby.
team. But I just don't think that it's going to be like. Has any Rams game been fun this season, win or loss? Be honest. No. Since week one. Like, even any of the Rams wins weren't fun to watch this season.
I
Okay.
don't know
So
why. I thought Seattle was a fun game.
well, I didn't. um, uh, so I don't know. I think it's going to be 17-14. I think it's going to be a close game. I think both teams are going to look not great, which has been the story for them this season. But I think the Rams are going to have a few drives that are going to be really impressive. I think that they are, like I said, teams that have nothing to lose. They're going to do some trickery. I think they're going to go out there. I think they're going to show us some new plays. I'm really hoping they get the young guys involved. Like I said, you have nothing to lose. Give me more Kyron Williams. Give me more Daniel Hardy. Put in Jacoby Durant. Yeast, Quentin Lake. Throw him in there.
Yeast.
Russ Yeast, just throw him in there. Like I really want to see these guys because this is a great opportunity. Again, like there's no reason they shouldn't be out there. We need to see how they compete in real life NFL games. I don't think that we have the luxury of just like holding on to guys right now and just giving them a year or two, just to stash them. I want to see them play. I think it's a waste not to. So for that reason, I'm excited. I think hopefully we do that, and I hope that we win. Jake, what about you?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Earlier in the week, I thought this was going to be a loss, but I don't know. After they acquired Baker, I feel like you kind of breathe life back into a locker room when you go out and you get a guy like that. In my opinion, I mean, it still kind of shows that there's still something to play for. Why would you make a move like that? Why would you even bother? I mean, that's them saying they still want to finish this season strong. I mean, they're trying to get the best quarterback in there. That is a good sign. I think you're doing that. We already talked about the countless reasons why they would do that. I think it makes a lot of sense, but also it kind of makes, a Jalen Ramsey, a Bobby Wagner, a Rob Havenstein, that just kind of makes them feel like, okay, like I'm putting my body on the line and they're accepting that and they're trying their best to put around a team that's going to win. I mean, I think that they appreciate that. So, I look at this game and I actually think it's the opposite. I don't think it's going to be ugly in the way that it's a low score. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I have 31-27, which as a Rams game, that's crazy. And I have them winning this game. Something about this game, Alexis, feels really weird. Like it feels like it's Thursday night. You have the short, week. I could see sloppy tackling. I could see big time plays. The Rams used to have weird games all the time on Thursday. Remember the Niners game? What was that? 41-39. Remember how ugly that game was? Like tackling wise, there was no defense, right? The Tampa Bay game, before that was like the last primetime game in St. Louis. That game was like ridiculous. I would not be surprised. And this is one of those games where, we get like a kickoff return touchdown by Powell, a blown 80-yard touchdown in coverage, to Devontae Adams. And then, you have like a fumble and an interception and Baker plays. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's just a wild game. So I don't know how much football analysis is leading me to 31-27 Rams win. But that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. I just feel like it's going to be a wacky game. You're trying, again, like football's entertainment. You're in the entertainment industry. You're trying to give the fans something to cheer about. This is at SoFi Stadium. It's on Thursday Night Football. People like scoring. I don't know. I think on a short week, I think you get it.
I hope you're right. And it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if like you said, it's just there's weird energy.
Very weird.
If this turns out to be like a 54, someone scores 54 points, like I wouldn't even be shocked. Like
I would not be
anything
shocked.
could happen, guys. We're in a very creepy, spooky
Riley
realm.
Dixon. Go like they do like 3 fake punts, I wouldn't be shocked. I really wouldn't. What is this team? They're trying to win football games. Like you could make these. Think about it. If you're playing Madden, do you know why people go for it on 4th down? Because it's a freaking video game. It's not like they have anything to lose. You know what I'm saying?
We have nothing to lose. That's the thing. Like like I said,
yeah.
I think anything could happen.
I want to see the fake punt return that they tried that got called back 2 weeks ago. The pitch back to Jalen Ramsey. I want to see them do like shit like that. Like that's what I want to see. I want to see some freaky stuff. I want to see Kyren Williams throwing a touchdown. That's what I want to see.
He can. I think he did it in college.
Yeah. See, I want to see Kyren Williams take like the double reverse that they did against Cincinnati in 2019. But I want Kyren Williams to be the beneficiary of it. Catch the ball, go and throw a bomb to Tutu Atwell, and then everyone be like, "Wait, is Kyren Williams QB1?" I don't know. I want some like crazy shit to happen.
There's a phrase that I want to use that I've seen on social media that I don't know applies to this. Should I say it?
Go ahead.
Is it going goblin?
Oh, goblin mode?
Yeah. Does that apply?
I mean, that's how I feel like this game is, though.
Did I use that correctly, universe?
It's goblin mode. I don't know about going goblin.
I should have Googled it before I said that. That could be something like... I just have seen that all used all over Twitter.
Yeah, I just feel like, you know, there
to be in okay, never mind, I didn't use it right. To be in goblin mode is to be unapologetically self-indulgent, lazy, or greedy. Never mind.
I mean, the Rams are going to be greedy about what they do in this
be
game.
greedy with how much that you use trick plays. Okay, just really go for it.
I want Ben Skoranek like lining up and taking direct snaps.
I want Ben Skoranek playing left guard. Like, just put him in there for a play. I bet you he could do it.
I almost said Matt Longacre. Wow, throwback.
Throwback.
I want Michael Hoyt to line up at tight end. Tyler Higbee can't catch right now. I don't know why. And they don't trust Bryson Hopkins. So the next best is to go double duty with freaking Michael Hoyt, who's an athletic freak.
By the way, this is totally off topic, but while we're talking about tight ends, Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. I know everyone's sick of me talking about Notre Dame players, but if by an act of God he falls into the second round, I could see the Rams, if they pick early in the second, trading up 2 or 3 picks to get Michael Mayer. I know that sounds crazy, but mark my words, because of what we've seen out of Higbee, and for whatever reason they do not like Bryson Hopkins, I don't think Michael Mayer will fall that far. So that's
I don't know. I mean, he'd be their best tight end in the history of Rams. Like at least the most talented tight end immediately. Right now, the best tight end in Rams history is Tyler Higbee.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you know, I'm not trying to, you know, hate on Tyler Higbee. I like him, but something's off. Like, he feels like he's banged up. Like, he doesn't feel like he's...
It feels mental to me. Because he started the season really good. Like, we were on this podcast talking about, like, Tyler Higbee's wide receiver too. like it was literally the first 5 weeks of the season. I was starting him over
George Kittle in fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, he was catching the most balls behind Kupp. I mean, it was Kupp and Higbee. That was it.
And then it was Skoranek. And then
it was Skoranek, and now
it's nobody.
Yeah, there is no wide receiver too. I mean, well, Jefferson is wide receiver
it's Jefferson and Atwell right now with a dash of Brandon Powell.
Brandon Powell is like pretty much like...
He's just a running back at this point.
I don't know. I wish they could, you know, Kyron's good in the receiving game. They could use him.
They tried to use Wolford. Remember they went for the...
Wolford threw to the defender.
That was
You know what was funny about that?
They double teamed him on a wheel route, and Wolford's like, nah, I got this, fam. And then he threw it up there, and it's like, why did he... I don't know.
The funniest part about that for me, because I knew the second that Wolford threw that it was aimed right at a defender. But the funniest thing about that was Kyron jumping like as high as he could in the air to try and to try to break up the pass, but it was just too far away from him to do that. But it was hilarious to watch, but sad because it was an interception. But
yeah.
Okay, but like using him in the receiving game and actually throwing to him and not to a defender would be cool. Put in I guess we talked about they don't really trust Hopkins. I don't know. McCutcheon, just like get more people involved in the receiving game. I don't know.
I
We have
kind of wish
nothing to
they
lose.
traded for TJ Hawkinson.
Like at this
the
point, why
deadline.
not? I mean, they should have, but
They could have traded
yeah.
Higbee and gotten something for it. I don't know.
Well,
I don't
something
know.
I guess this all started because I brought up the Michael Mayer thing, but Higbee, is not looking great.
I think this is us formally realizing like the
We're in
glass
draft
shattered
mode.
and like it's the glass shattered and we realize that sorry, tight end is a need again. Like they need another tight end. If
They do.
God forbid Higbee or Bryson go down, like they're going to Jacob Harris, who they don't even trust. And then after that, they don't have anybody.
They don't even like Jacob Harris. They like actively try to get him like off the team already.
I don't know.
God, what a nightmare. But
Fourth
anyway,
round pick, and he's
I'm just saying
his first pass, Alexis, his only pass in the NFL he caught was on a faked punt, and that was their 4th round pick last year at wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was just throwing that out there because I want the Rams to go offensive line or edge in the second, but I could just see like if Michael Mayer slips to the second, which I would be very, very shocked if that happens. But if like no tight ends are taken in the first, it happens. Maybe the Rams move up from picking like 5th overall in the second to 1st or 2nd. I don't know. I could just see it. I would love to have him on the Rams. It's unrealistic, but I just want to throw it out there as a sleeper draft person to watch. But yeah, that's going to do it, guys, for us. I know this episode was a lot. It was a little chaotic. The Rams are just in a place now, like, that we're not used to reporting on. Jake and I have been doing this 4 years. We've always been in this point of the season. Even if it hasn't been going great, we've never been out of the playoff hunt.
2019, they were in it down to the wire.
Yeah, exactly. So this is new to us as well. And I think the Rams haven't been here in a while. So yeah, it's a different vibe. We've seen it. I think Baker Mayfield kind of solidified where the Rams are at. I mean, this is now the Rams are going to try to go out strong. I think they're using this time to evaluate the talent that they have and look to next year, see who they're going to take with them, see who they aren't. But guys, that's going to do it from us. We will be back probably Saturday at this point because it's a Thursday night game, maybe Friday night with a recap of the Rams-Raiders game. But until then, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Downtown Rams. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Kraft. You can follow Jake at JKBogan. And we'll be back, guys. But until then, stay safe, take care, and go Rams.
If you haven't joined Prize Picks yet, you need to do it this season. Prize Picks allows you to pick up to 5 player props, and it gives you the option to 10x your winnings. Look at this right now. Tom Brady right now, for a limited time only, is a free square because unless he gets hurt, he is going to be getting that 0.5. I'm going to select Tom Brady. I'm going to select Josh Allen going 275.5. Matthew Stafford going 265.5. We'll just throw Lamar Jackson in here and let's just throw Justin Fields gets more than 191.5. So what you do here, you put more or less if you believe, Lamar Jackson gets less than that. And there you go, 10x your winnings if this pays out. You will actually get paid out even if you only hit 3 of them. You'll get 0.4 times your money back. You'll get 2 times. You'll double your money if you get at least 4 out of 5. Deposit today by using our promo code DTRAMS, and you'll get up to a $100 bonus match.